Mr. Amritpal Singh, Head IP Star. We have Mr. Jitendra Ahuja, Head Product Solution, Nelco Limited. Let's welcome them all with a warm round of applause. Thank you.
Warm welcome to everyone. And here we have a very interesting session. We've seen an amazing 2 days of satellite conference where there's a lot of talk going on how business SATCOM ecosystem is thriving, new startups are coming up. What is the backbone for all this? How did this happen? Since I've been in practice for last 3 decades, and for last 2.5 decades I've been in the SATCOM and telecommunication area, the kind of development and the kind of growth that I've seen in the last 5 years, it was not there in all of those 20 years. What changed? And the backbone was the regulatory landscape has a complete U-turn. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. And I'm going to invite the chair, Mr. Rayappa, first. He's a director in ISRO, leading the SATCOM division. And let's put our hand together for his initial thoughts. Thank you.
Namaskar. Very good morning. At the outset, I would like to thank and congratulate SIA-INDIA for this successful conducting of this India Space Congress 2025. We are here to deliberate on the important topic, I should say most important topic, India's SATCOM regulatory and policy landscape. So we have eminent panelists who have wetted their hands in SATCOM domain for decades, and I have a close acquaintance with all of them for quite some time. And we are aware that the relevance and requirement of the regulation and policy is very important in the light of that space sector is opened up for the non-government players. Till 2020, the space-based activity was under the ISRO. ISRO was the only player, and most of the regulations, of course, were related to the government domain. So when we talk about satellite communication now in the current context, we can look at from 2 major perspectives. One, the space-based systems, their jurisdictions, their operations, and the way the space systems are used for different services. And the other is the space sector, wherein how the services are rolled out using these space systems, and the policy and regulations related to the services. After the space sector reforms was announced in 2020, afterwards the IN-SPACE, an autonomous government agency, was created, and it plays the role of enabler, promoter, supervisor, and also regulator. Pursuant to that, the Indian Space Policy 2023 came into effect from April 2023. And further, IN-SPACE also brought out a detailed norms, regulations, guidelines for implementation of the policy, which is a detailed one which addresses various activities starting from launching, remote sensing systems, communication systems, manufacturing, even a section on the regulations itself, liability issues. At the same time, DOT, the ministry responsible for implementation and regulation of telecom services, has also revised many of the regulations, policies to align with the space policy. In the meantime, the new Telecom Act was also brought in the government. And similarly, another important ministry, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, they also updated the some of the uplink and downlink regulations to suit the new regime. This one. Now in the reform regime, earlier the policy prior to the space sector domains, the policy and regulation for space was more towards promoting and enhancing the domestic capability. There was a thrust on using domestic system primarily. So with the reforms now, it is enabled that opened up for industries. We are going to deliberate on different aspects of it now through our experts. But the point I'm trying to highlight is it has brought in a lot of opportunities for the new players. They can bring in satellite systems, they can operate satellite systems, they can offer the capacity. Earlier, offering of capacity was only going through Department of Space. So we were evaluating whether there is a domestic equivalent capacity available. If so, we were pursuing, but not very strictly implementing. We were trying to pursue the applicant, say that there is a domestic capacity available to consider before going for the foreign system. Of course, now any capacity, they don't have to come to Department of Space for seeking the permission. Now the onus of getting the authorization for the space systems lies with the satellite operators. The service provider don't have to come to Department of Space for any capacity, all those things. Once they have to see the authorized systems, the service providers have all the freedom to negotiate with the authorized agencies to lease the capacity and the authorized systems. So this is the thing. So at the same time, after opening the space sector, we see that there has been a noticeable change, a lot of interest from the players. A number of players, particularly the startup ecosystem, is quite impressive, and they have come out into this field, and most of them are focusing on technologies and space systems, subsystems, and bringing out new solutions. But however, in the SATCOM sector, we are able to see such vibrancy, where I think maybe what are the things which needs to be enabled, maybe we'll try to touch upon a few of them. And the opportunities for the SATCOM and SATNAV are to be really exploited to bring and roll out various applications in the consumer domain and the commercial domain, and also the government and strategic domains. So let's start the session with this background. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful comments. We have a distinguished panel here, a team of very equipped industry specialists here. Before we do that, I'll make a brief introduction. I'll in fact request everyone to make a brief introduction. Can I start with Mr. Ahuja?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jitendra. I take care of product and solutions in SATCOM. In SATCOM industry for the last 3 decades, initially with Telstra, with Airtel, and now with Nelco. I have seen this transformation that is happening, in the last 3 decades. Believe me, if I 3 decades, 30 years, initial 5 years versus last 5 years, there is sea change, that is happening. And I think that is something that I'm quite excited about, this particular session. It is close to my heart, and definitely, we'll speak as we move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Khattar.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rajiv Khattar. I am a consultant. I've spent around more than 3 decades in the industry on all sides of the table, as a user, as a satellite service provider, as a infrastructure developer. I've seen this industry grow from analog to digital, and with new opportunities coming up, new areas opening up. I think the government giving a lot of push on this. There's a lot of exciting things in the next 5 years or 10 years we will see of the industry. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, afternoon. I'm Amritpal Singh. I'm from IP Star. I've been with SATCOM for the last 25 years, and we have done broadcasting, we have done broadband. We were the first ones to launch high-throughput satellites in India in 2010. We are also going to be bringing in 2 more satellites in the next few years, which will be software-defined satellites. So we are here to stay, and we thank. I think regulatory changes. Everyone is saying it has brought so much change that it's exciting right now. It's very good time to be right now.
And last but not the least, I'm Seema Jhingan. I am the co-founder, partner of Counsel. Counsel is a full-service law firm, and as my background, I'm an M&A expert, and with a lot of focus on telecommunications, satellites. I do a lot of work in education, higher education and lower education sectors, and I do a lot of work in technology and IT. So just to begin, before we start the question, I just want to bring the landscape of satellite regulatory framework here, just to give where we are when it comes to the SATCOM policy. So just to take you back a bit, in 1997, the first SATCOM policy came in 1997 to bring in the private participation in India. It was followed by, in 2000, norms and guidelines of how to bring the investments from foreign investors and satellites and private players into India. The intent was to capitalize on the private sector initiatives in broadcasting and telecommunication at that point. And the government, in their wisdom, thought that this would be the right time to bring satellite communication services in India. But there was a lot of issues concerning, I would say it was issues, there was a cautiousness in the approach. There was national security issues. We were too nascent in the opening up. There were orbital slot issues. There were issues related to clarity on law because the norms were very sketchy and there was not much clarity of how to apply and how to get the approval. So during my experience at that point of time, I did a lot of canalization of foreign satellite in India, which basically meant foreign satellite operators coming to India and providing their capacity to Indian broadband and other broadcasting companies. So that was the range of exposure that the private sector had at that point of time. That was not intended when the policy was brought. The policy was brought to create a vibrant satellite communication service ecosystem, which did not happen for multiple reasons that I've just pointed out. And then there a pivotal movement happened, which was a transformative movement, I would say in 2020, when the government said that we would want real private participation in the SATCOM sector, and they announced the setting up of the IN-Space. Then in 2023, they came up with the SATCOM policy. And what the intent was to bring clarity to what the landscape is all about. They identified the roles of ISRO, they identified the roles of IN-Space, they identified the roles of other agencies involved, NSIL, and they enabled and opened up the space activities such as manufacturing of satellite, launch of satellite, operation of satellite, launch vehicles, transportation vehicles, ground systems. All of those systems which were unknown to be open for private sector was made open. And in 2024, IN-Space came up with a very detailed policy guidelines which sort of brought in multiple sectors that you can invest in. What are the process for that? There was clarity to the approval process and a single window system of approval was announced. Now, at the same time, the Ministry of Commerce also announced foreign direct investment change policy. What it entailed was that you can have foreign investors in India on 100% investment capabilities in the Indian satellite companies, including for satellite operation, manufacturing, launch vehicles, and ground stations. So in 3 years, there was tremendous amount of push given by the government. And rest, the Indian entrepreneurs took on the lead and did a lot of what you see today in the last 4 years, the kind of SI conferences, the participation that we see, it's all thanks to the clarity that we have. And what did those policies did? It brought clarity to the approval process. It brought what are the areas that you can invest. It brought ease of doing business through FDI, through online portals, you can apply your application. It brought responsiveness and accountability to even government, because there are approval process timelines. You have to do these, achieve these timelines in X to X number of days. You have to, this is all government responsibility to go back to the industry and be responsible. Even in cases of termination, when the space industry the authorization has been breached, the government gives the cure period, that come back, we've identified certain issues and breaches with your contract and your authorization is not compliant, come back and sort of rectify. So there is a lot of responsiveness and communication happening between government and industry, which was, in my own experience as a space expert lawyer at that point of time, was not available. So that is the background where I will start the communication with our panelist, and I'll bring in a lot of policy issues and my own assessment, because I'm working with a lot of space startups as of now, so I'll bring in those insights as well, but I'll start with the questions now. Can you hear me? So, Mr. Ahuja, let me start with you. Looking at the tremendous policy shift, and you've been in this industry for 3 decades, as you mentioned, how do you see this policy has opened up gates for private sector participation, and how it has eased the regulatory landscape and licensing landscape in particular?
First of all, thanks for asking this question, because this was something that I wanted to speak. I think, there is a sea change that we see. How things are considered, how things are activated. It is a thought process, it is the strategy. And when we say policy, regulation, it is no more licensing. It is industry enablement. That's the mind shift that is happening in the government. It is not about control, it is about enablement. I think that is the most important thing. And when you say that enablement not from one angle, from the holistic perspective, on the supply side, on the technology side, ease of doing business, everything is moving tandem for a particular end objective to achieve. We see clear that government is clear what they mean by space industry. What is the importance of that? Probably I think somewhere, if I talk about 3 decades back, that thought process itself was not there. I see with this government that thought process is there. How this industry is so important is not about the size, it's about the importance of this industry. If you see terrestrial versus SATCOM, purely from revenue perspective, why government would have given so much of time, so much of impetus onto this particular industry? Because of strategic importance. If you see the holistic manner, the way that government has been moving, see the enablement on the technology side. Previously, as Mr. Rayappa was also saying, that was primarily ISRO who was doing everything from manufacturing to operations to technology and everything else. See the government that they have changed the landscape. It's not just about ISRO. ISRO is doing its own work on the R&D, enablement, industry support, but how the government has moved in terms of making sure that private participation comes into the industry. Industry is enabled, technology is coming to India. That is one part where in space also is playing very, very important role. See the kind of support that is given in terms of FDI investments, that is there. Kind of support that has come with ease of doing business. Kind of support that has come to SATCOM regulation, be it terms of spectrum allocation, be it terms of lowering down the fees, in terms of like say NOCC fees, in terms of other charges. Government, as Seema was mentioning, government is much more responsive. They understand their responsibility. That is the key change that is happening. Now, I think on the supply side, government has done a lot. A lot has been done from the government side in terms of ensuring that technology is moving, technology is getting developed in India, that system is enabled. I think similarly on the demand side, in terms of from SATCOM industry, SATCOM service provider like Nelco, we see the change. Previously everything has to go via Antarish or then later with NC. Today, once the satellite operator has got the approval, authorization, from in-space, after that, government is not coming between the contract of two commercial organizations, which is satellite operator and service provider. It's a big change, big shift that government is enabling and not controlling. I see that is happening a lot, and that is enabling the private participation. Now satellite operators can come to India, and once they get the authorization from the in-space as per the well laid out, well-known process, which is quite transparent, once the authorization is there, then the contracting can directly happen. I think that's a big change that has happened, and we see that as the technology is moving from GEO to LEO and MEO also will come up. So we see that change will continue. On the supply side, from the satellite bandwidth perspective for Nelco, we are a service provider. We are concerned with how we are serving our customers better, in best manner possible. For that, what the flexibility that required was, we should be able to choose the technology, choose the right satellite operator, and choose the commercial term that we want to get with that satellite operator. All that is enabled now, and we see that with the new technologies coming up, we are quite excited to see that what is coming up in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahuja, for your thoughts. Mr. Rayappa, coming to you. In the question for you, sir. Yeah. ISRO has a wealth of expertise, knowledge, and a lot of experience in handling SATCOM policies, SATCOM technologies. How do you think we as startups, we as space industry can harness that information, that expertise that ISRO has, which now is the role of ISRO to act as a research and developer and research arm of the government?
Yeah, there is a major change in the perspective. Now, it's a very clear from the government point of view, even from the ISRO management point of view. Our focus is slowly, we are moving from the operational systems to advanced systems and advanced technologies. So whatever the operational system is there, earlier because of self-dependency, self-reliance, on those considerations, everything was done by ISRO. Now, as the industry has telecom and telecommunication services, digital communication services, the way we are seeing, it is penetrating in a major way, and every aspects of life depends on the digital connectivity and IT-based applications and solutions. So, considering that, if government starts doing everything, I think there is a tremendous demand going, and day by day, it becomes extremely difficult to government to do the things which can be done by the commercial domain or industry. Second one, there is a vibrant sector of the industry where globally we see that in India also it is seen that there is a larger investment in new innovations, new way of delivery of service. So these are the considerations for opening up particularly the satellite communication segment, and even the remote sensing segment for the private. Now coming to the new regime, any startup, any new player, if they want any information, any support, it is always made available. Though whether it is in terms of regulations, if you go through the SATCOM, India space policy and norms, guidelines and procedures published by InSpace, it almost addresses all these aspects, how to approach for any technology, how to approach for an authorization, how to approach for anything they want to do. In fact, even it is brought out that there is a fund created for supporting the new players of 2,000 crores. And also another 500 crores is made for supporting the advanced technology developments. So these are all the initiatives to promote the new players. Second one, in the last 3 days, we have been seeing that there are a lot of investmenters in this conference and standing up and asking how they can contribute, how they can identify, how can get into this one. So I think the time is very apt and opened up. Any player for any technology, there is a clarity. If they want any technology from ISRO, we are ready to support it. Or if academia wants to do that, we have a scheme. Also academia, they can directly come that. Also we have a scheme known as sponsored scheme. So they can come out with any innovative solutions, we support that for that. Any new player, if they want to test their systems, there is a mechanism, they can come to our laboratories, use our laboratories and test and validate. So there are a lot of opportunities, not only listed, we don't have to limit to that, what is known to the people. Even if they have any new ideas, if they want to get to know how to do that, they can approach InSpace or ISRO. So we are there to support the employees. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Khattar, if I can come to you now. If you heard what happened on the first day, there was a lot of concern that we have so many startups, we have so much of ecosystem in terms of space regulatory clarity being brought in. But where is the business? So the question was, can this satellite industry sustain and support the kind of entrepreneurial zeal that we are seeing? Is the business enough? So in your view, because you're an expert and you've been in the industry for the last 30, 40 years now, in your view, what should the regulator or the policy makers would be doing to enable the industry to create more opportunities for satellite production, manufacture and export?
Yeah. See, this is what has been really a question for the last 2 years, that where will this industry go with these startups coming up? And it's in a very positive direction. See, this industry has a very long gestation period. You cannot do a startup today and say next 1 year you will launch a satellite or you will be able to launch any application. It has a long gestation period, it takes time. And what has happened in the last 2 or 3 years with InSpace coming in picture, all the support from the government has opened up. Ms. Rayappa just now mentioned that ISRO facilities are available, not only in terms of physical, in terms of intellectual also. People, startups can go out there. Seed capital funds have been given. There have been a lot of other support from government. And then biggest change which I see is we have been always asking for an open sky sort of environment. I mean, earlier we had to go always through ISRO or through Antrix or through NSIL to get bandwidths and do the business. But now, once the authorization process is done, operator is open to deal with the satellite provider. Now, these startups, they are getting into downstream. And once this downstream enablement happens, you will see more capacities building over India. We have got geospatial thing coming up. We have got a lot of irrigation applications, drones, which are going to be a big thing in next few internet, IoT, direct to device. When I say direct to device, don't take it direct to mobile. There will be direct to device and many devices actually. So it's not only direct to device. So these startups, now the question with these startups is, will they be able to sustain? They should be able to sustain because there will be support from government. They need some more help in terms of certain more, I would say, financial things. This industry, if this gets a tax infrastructure status, see, then they will be able to raise comfortably more debt, more funding from the institutions on a long-term basis with very low interest rates and getting income tax benefits. This has been on the cards for some time. The government has been thinking on that. I think it will come soon very soon. FDI policies have been made simpler, so you will get more generation of funds coming in. And the startups will get into new activities. Once they get into new activities which are going to the villages, going to the gram panchayat levels, definitely the business and the applications will grow on. That's mine.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Singh, coming to you now. There is so much of impetus on satellite communication services. How does that work in tandem with the service offerings that your business provides? And how does, what exactly would you want the government to also lay certain emphasis on the service offerings that you and your industry as a broadband service providers are focusing on? What are your thoughts on that?
See, we have been providing services of high throughput satellites for almost a decade now, almost 15 years now in India. We see that government has an impetus now to go to the Gram Panchayat level via satellite. Initially that was not there. To go to the villages that are left out, to go to the remotest parts of the country. We have been providing services for that purpose. Also, with respect to the in-space authorization, I would like to thank ISRO, in-space, because the policy is so clear. We have been approved for 3 satellites already. We have 3 satellites approved which will provide services in India. And we'll be bringing almost 50 to 60 Gbps capacity in the next 2 years. So with this sort of capacity, we are talking about going to the remotest parts of India, connecting two-way communication. We are not talking about kilobits of data, now we're talking about megabits and gigabits of download. So with each village empowered, we feel we have seen the changes when we go to Gram Panchayats. The kids studying under the Wi-Fi scheme, those kind of things, this enabling the youth and connecting to the internet, which was a remote possibility before. Let's say 5-10 years ago, there was no impetus from government. Government is pushing, more schemes are coming in, more projects are coming in which enablement of internet to every person is there. Once that is coming in and that continues in that direction, we feel that we're in the right path, and opening up of this in-space policy through that, I think enablement has happened, and we are one of the benefactors with approvals in the place, and we feel this direct path is being laid in which a roadmap is created that you're connecting directly to the user, and thus it takes the country forward with everybody is connected to the internet. So those are the things, it's in the right direction, and we feel very excited to be in this phase.
Thank you. For the benefit of the audience, I spent just another 2 minutes on what exactly, we've spoken a lot about the in-space authorization, and the authorization is simple and easy to get. But I'd like you to understand that, well, there is clarity, but there are obligations. And what are those obligations? As an authorization holder, I need to understand that the authorization that has been granted is personal to me. It cannot be transferred from one entity to the other. If you take the authorization, you have to deliver. That's question number 1. And if you have to transfer it to another company or another entity, then you need to take prior approval. The second is if there is any change in your management. Now you're not transferring your business to somebody else, but there is a change, substantial majority change in your business, which basically means 51% and more. Or even if a CEO or the key executives in your company are being changed. Could be CFO, could be CEO, could be other senior management. If there is a change to that also, you need to go back to InSpace and inform them. Because the faith of the authorization was based on the founders and the people that are funding and running the operations. The other bit is there are exposures to liability. So there is international treaties, there are national treaties. Not only we have to comply with the authorization terms, we have to also comply with the international, for example, space debris mitigation treaty, outer space treaty. And the government, because the government of India is responsible to the international, in the international arena for any liability that happens on the damage to the other space objects, to any property on the earth, the government of India is liable. So all of that is being passed on. So when we take authorization, it comes with a lot of obligations. We need to be aware of them. And we also be cognizant that if there is a national security issues or a national emergency issues, your authorization can be put in limbo. So there are obligations and there are remedies available as well, but there are obligations that we need to be adherent to when we look at the policy. Now moving on with the other set of questions, Mr. Ahuja, if I may ask, the commercial rollout of the SATCOM services are on the anvil. Starlink is coming, OneWeb is coming. And TRAI has already identified the proposed spectrum fee as fee 4% of the AGR. What do you think as industry you have challenges with the allocation of spectrum? What are the challenges you faced as an industry?
I think I'll answer it slightly differently. As far as allocation of the spectrum is concerned, Once the process is laid out, I don't see, we aren't faced, frankly, any challenge. Operational challenge is that, yeah, it is taking some bit more, couple of weeks here and there, those are options. But I don't think from policy perspective, once the policy has been laid out, I don't see much challenge there. But as you are talking about, new technologies, LEO, MEO versus GEO. Now we have been operating on GEO, with the LEO coming, with the Starlink coming up. We have to be well aware of national interest, because that's of prime importance. What we are enabling it for. As an industry, as a user, we like the cheapest capacity available, maximum supply of the capacity. That yes is given, but at the same time, we have so much of Indian satellites, geostationary satellite, Indian foreign satellite that are already there. We don't want that one Starlink coming up and wiping away, making them, sort of non-viable. We have to be very well aware. Also about, what is that from the security policy. We should see that these LEO operators, how they are operating around the world, what the kind of control as a country would have on that, because we have specific reasons, and everyone in this room would be aware that what I am referring to and why it is required. We should be very clear that on national interest there should not be any compromise, and policy should be such that it is balancing the GEO as well as LEO, NGSO as well as GSO satellites, because both are important to us. And specifically, when we're talking about startups are not building up LEO constellations today. We are still talking about geostationary, be it for communication, be it for Earth observation. From that perspective, it is very important that GSO satellites interests are also protected. That's my number one. The other point is also related to when we're talking about, objectivity, as you're talking about spectrum allocation, objectivity of the process. When you're talking about once the process is laid down, yes, national interests are most important, but once the process is laid down, even for foreign operator also, that objectivity should be maintained. That once they are complying to those processes, the clearance should be faster, as per the laid down process. I think these are very important, because when you're talking about supply side, it is there. Now today, I'll say that last few years, it was more of a supply issue. Now it is going to be a demand issue. How government policy is enabling the demand. And we have to learn from what is the globally other countries are doing. Take the example of US, take the example of Europe. Substantial spending, is going into enabling the satellite service provider, satellite operator, government spending is there. How the government is enabling, the SATCOM service provider with the more demand from the government defense segment. I'm not saying just for the heck of it that government generates the demand. There is a requirement. Still, there are thousands of villages which are unconnected. SATCOM is the most important today, and the context that is very clear in today's context. SATCOM is strategically very important, for defense segment also. From that perspective also, how government is generating the demand, that is very, very important. How government is supporting the industry. Supply side, yes, we have created so many startups are there, but demand also has to be there, so that it's a sustained industry, and that's where the government support is. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Singh, if I can come to you now. You've seen we have opened up the foreign direct investment policies. We've invited 100% investments into satellite communication services. Do you think at this nascent stage, the private participation from foreign investors and their investments in India is something which is good for the nascent SATCOM industry in India? What are your views on that?
I feel this is required. End of the day, there are many operators around the world. We are one of them. We are 100% owned subsidiary with FDI approvals. So, the question is, we exist today because of that. We came in with 100% FDI approval. So, That is required, and end of the day, if other operators are coming in because of the in-space policy, they will set up their own subsidiaries, they will set up their own companies and do the business. So the roadmap is clear. See, from government perspective, licensing part is done, in-space is giving authorization. Then where does the money coming from? FDI is clear, money comes in through that route, and it enables the whole structure to provide a service to the user. See, end of the day, all this is being done so that the user who's unconnected, who's not able, somewhere left out, is able to get service from multiple providers. So that is an enabler part is done. Now the next thing is, yes, FDI, yes, the rules are required, and that will help also the startups, because they can also get funding. They can also get taken up, there are buyouts happening, M&A happening, all that is a part of the process. If the FDI is limited, then all that does not happen.
So in net, all foreign investors are most welcome to come to India. So Mr. Khattar? Yes.
Can I add on this?
Yes, please.
See, FDI rules which have come up are going to be very helpful. We are not looking at FDI only for startups now or the new ventures. This FDI will help bring in more companies into India, which will provide more back-end support also to the satellite business. We have been left out of TTC business a lot from India because of the FDIs and because of the regulations, which are now much more simpler. And we being geographically located in such a very good position that we can do a very good TTNC business from India, which is a big market actually. Similarly, you can do a lot of back-end activities for satellite operators worldwide. And then a lot of applications can be done. And if this FDI is available, the industry will grow actually. Because then they see the value and then they see the partners with them.
Let me pivot a bit. No discussion on SATCOM policy will be complete without discussions on liability, because that's a real thing. Mr. Khattar, if I can ask you, if in your representation of companies who are now saddled with not only national but international liability in case of disaster or an accident, what is the view and how do you think the industry is grappling with this potential exposure for indemnification that the government is seeking, potential exposure if there's an accident, and how equipped they are from support of the insurance?
See, for the satellite operators, they are all governed by the ITU-TTs, and there are appropriate steps there that suppose there is and when you do a filing, you have to do an undertaking that okay, if there is a damage or there is a unfortunate incident, who is going to be responsible? So those rules are very clearly laid out. Similarly, in case of any interferences, again the process is very clearly laid out, and RRBs work very efficiently in that. I've seen that in various markets. It has worked very efficiently. And if you're looking at from an operator point of view, see, all our licenses are already adequately protecting any such eventuality in case of any damage or any unfortunate incident. And also in case of any threat to national security or sovereignty issues, all our licenses for service provisions are taking care of those. There are adequate steps in that. Government can step up, the regulatory authorities can come and step up. And we have recently seen government announcing the SATCOM monitoring center also, which is going to be not only helpful to government, it is going to be helpful to the industry also. See, with so many satellites coming up, LEOs coming up, our chances of interferences are going to be a little higher if we are not very careful about it. There has to be very coordinated efforts between the ground that goes and the satellite operators and the users, so that everyone survives and everyone is able to do business in a profitable manner actually. And this SATCOM monitoring center will help a lot in that, because you will be able to know who is generating what, and it will be helpful in the long process. Initially, people feel it's going to be a little bit more of a monitoring situation, but from a long-term perspective, it is going to be helpful to the industry also.
Thank you. Mr. Rayappa, now that we are on the topic of national security and emergency mitigation risk issues, the government is planning to set up a satellite monitoring center in India, which will look at the Indian and the foreign satellite monitoring They will look at the monetization and looking at the safeguarding the orbital slot and spectrum issues. They will be looking at interception issues. What do you think, first of all, do we need that coming from this standpoint, or do we need more monitoring in this area? And what would be the potential benefits of this monitoring center?
No, there are two aspects to that. Yeah, as you said already, satellite monitoring center is already there functional. Now what they are talking about is to enhance the capability of that satellite monitoring center. There are two perspectives from that. One is the legitimate use of the spectrum as per the allotment, because spectrum is governed with certain licensing, legitimate use, all those things. That is one thing. SMC will have a role to ensure that the assigned frequencies are used. Second one, it helps in the mitigating any instances of interference. For example, interference can be a intentional interference or a non-intentional. Most of the cases it's unintentional, like which may come from the malfunctioning of a device or a system, or it can come from mistakes from the operations. So there can be even an intentional interferences. In order to deal with those things, SMC will have a role to play by looking at the spectrum of the transmitters. This is one thing. You also raised the legal things. Legal things, when it comes to that, of course, again, we will need to have a mechanism to look into that, how and when these are the things. Without any tools, it becomes extremely difficult. And in the case of emergency, other point you ask is the government's having a upper hold in the times of exigencies. Of course, if there are any exigencies, the entire way of the country's response to various things will be different. The nation first, or the country first, security first aspects will be at the forefront. The time government need to have the mechanism to take over certain systems to deal with certain things. Of course, not permanently, to deal with certain situations. Those are part of the licensing. I don't think it's specific to India. It's a common thing everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
I may just add to that. It was quite interesting. See, as we were in geostations. As we move on to NGSO also will come, they will be using and sharing the similar frequencies. Now, this facility is critical and important to ensure that users are able to use the satellite systems without interference, or if interference is there, it can be adequately resolved. So, from that perspective, it is not something that whether we should have or not, it is must to have. That's one. The other is that, again, in national interest, because one of the topics that we touched was that it will not be relating to monitoring, but other aspect that we touched was that how we are ensuring as India, we need to ensure that we have our own orbital slots by GEO also, whether used by government agencies like ISRO or by private satellite operators. But that's right. Similarly for LEO, even today we don't have our own LEO, but going forward that may change in near future or medium future. From that perspective, it's very important that we are reserving or taking steps to reserve our LEO orbital slots. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Before I open the discussions for questions, because we're on the question of liability and legal issues, see what is in the policy that as an operator, as an authorization holder, you should be clear of. The policy requires you, if there is a criminal case against any of these, the management of the company or against the company itself, you need to notify the government. So criminal case could be related to fraudulent issues or other exposures that you've had in the industry. You need to intimate, and the government retains, and I would say rightfully, government retains the right, as in-space retains the right to terminate your license. So that is one. So the intimation has to be there. Second is, as an operator, I cannot go and decide one day that I'm going to do the closure of the service. It's not as simple as that. If you have taken the authorization, you've taken the permit to deliver a service, and you have customers on board, you cannot now conclude and say, I'm closing the service from next month. That can lead to severe penalties under the policy. So if you are wanting to close the service, you need to give intimation to the government, and your reasons have to be cogent. They have to be justified why you're closing the service. And if those justifications are not found to be justifiable, there is a penalty lurking out there. Second, the government retains the right of termination of your license in case there is a national emergency, or suspend your license. And they also have a right to terminate, obviously, when you are in breach. But in these circumstances, looking at the previous vast exposure that the government has had, the government has specifically included a statement out there that if there is a termination owing to your breach, and it's a rightful termination, the government is not going to be responsible for any loss of profit, loss of business, or any kind of consequential losses that you're going to have from arising from those terminations. So that's something else that you need to be clear of. And yes, debris mitigation is something that government is very serious about, and they require you to take your insurances and put in place so that in case of any accident, you have your exposures covered. So with that, I will invite the audience to have, if they have any questions, we'll be most happy to address.
Hello, there is almost good afternoon, and thank you very much for panel to throw the light on the agenda. It is very in line with agenda and very informative. I have three little questions. See, there is a ITU. Even ISRO is facing difficulty while they are launching the satellite for frequency plan and all that. There is very much lead time, even 2-3 years. Before you apply for the frequency plan and all that. So how do you feel that while private player is now in the satellite business, so how the mechanism will work? Because I think, because I am group director, SATCOM, former group director, and work in a SATCOM division, so it will take much more time to approve from the ITU. That's my first question. Second is, now private player is there, so even ISRO is facing so many coordination difficulty while onboard application and ground network harnessing and management. So now it is different players in the different roles. One onboard is something else and someone is at ground station. So how they will coordinate and integrate the activity in very effective manner?
Yes.
Yes. The first question is, you are right that obtaining the right to use the orbital's resources and spectrum resources is a long-term procedure. A very well laid out ITU regulations addresses how to do that after making a filing. ITU identifies the which are the other critical neighboring filings which we have to coordinate, and we have to coordinate, get the access to, then launch a satellite, notify, and get the access to. It takes about 8 to 9 years. And it's not that all the filings will result in a rectification of the coordination. Filings may, even before achieving any coordination, it may expire and the filing may go waste. These are the things which are known to us. As far as India is concerned, now we have to enabling the more of private participation. There are two things. So one is whichever filings which are operated by India and filed by India, which have relatively matured to some level and there is a visibility to use them. Some of them are opened up for giving to industries, private industries. Through that process, one of the filing we have given to one of the Indian industries to take it as its various basis and plan a launch of satellite. that will go on. For example, if down the line, if there are any other filings, there is no visibility that government or any other operator is not going to occupy, that will be given to any other prospective players. Second one is, there is also enablement for Indian industries to come forward by themselves, have a plan and make an analysis, go through the ITU database, make an analysis, make an assessment. And if they feel that there is a prospects in one of the slots in any of the frequency bands, they are free to do that. And we are ready to help them in all ways, starting from educating them how to make a file, helping them in establishing, setting up coordination meetings, etc. That is one aspect. So your second question is, I think now we are more of going towards standard-based things. I think there will not be any issue in compatibility issues of this system working with ground systems. Those are most technological aspects. Once we adapt to the standards, I think there will be solutions for that. Thank you.
And last one, right now there is a concept of small satellite from 10 kg, 100 kg, 215, at least up to 500 kg. So how do you panel see the potential of the small satellite applications, which is nowadays it is very much blooming?
You can design the satellite to stack it up on a single launch vehicle so that you can stack up to 25, 30, 40 depending on the plan of the launch. And in the LEO, the concept is again more of a redundancy is addressed in terms of the number of satellites rather than the redundancy added onto the satellite itself, because if there is a failure of a satellite, you can afford to launch a quick satellite. So the philosophy of producing a satellite, and even in the LEO systems, there is a more towards adapting commercially off-the-shelf solutions with some high reliability things. So there is a totally change in the way satellites which are made for LEO and satellites which are made for GEO. So I think it's more of an innovation and finding a customized solution rather than, that is the consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, a question for me.
Please take one.
Let's take one. Anyone, please. You're closing the show up, but sorry. Yeah, my question to you is, when are we going to get a policy for India on aspects which affect the common man, like emergence of new technologies where cellular is merging with the satellite communication, and new phones are coming up. And we still have not decided anything about the policies related to communication, in-flight connectivity from the aircrafts. It has been a very long time for commercial aircrafts. As soon as we enter the airspace of India, the communications are shut off. So there has to be an evolution of the policies, and which needs to have a combination of the Ministry of Home, Ministry of Defense, and space-related activities, controlling all the bodies, so that a common man overcomes the problem. Because anybody coming in for a trekking in India cannot have a communication. So several people are kidnapped today, even last few months back. So he can't use a satellite telephone. So with this kind of scenarios in India, there has to be an attitude in the government to support a common man-oriented policies. And the pending policies, particularly for in-flight connectivity from commercial aircraft, is a very long time. So I've been seeing this for the last 8 years. No decision has been taken. Sometimes the Defense Ministry stops, sometimes the Home Ministry stops. There's no end to this. So
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, sir. I think I'll be very brief on that. all these issues can be, that is the very important question you have raised. That's where the time is, it is taking more time to finalize the regulations for that. So far, SATCOM was limited to only bigger terminals. So you are aware of the things where the systems are coming, where they install. You can limit to the operations of them through geo and all those mechanisms. So the LEO and with compact terminals, handheld terminals, the capability to connect to the mobile is making much more concerns you raised. That is where the law making, regulations making process is taking time. To my today, as on date, I think the government of India with the DOT, the regulations are there to deal with that. Of course, the future one, when the direct-to-device comes, how to control all those things. Those are the future things that has to be deliberated. Of course, discussions are on. Hope that will be finalized.
And the new telecom policy is going to be announced shortly.
Just to add to that, question. Just that, you're aware that as Nelco, we are already providing in-flight connectivity services in India. Today, more than 1,500 aircrafts are using our services. When they come to India, they are connected on internet using Nelco services. It is not something that policy is not. Policy is already there, it is already rolled out, it's already in use, as we say for in-flight connectivity. Now, other for direct-to-device satellites are getting launched, will take another 2 years. That is part of the discussion, and I'm sure that before those services are commercially viable, available, those related regulations also will be in place. Thanks.
Thank you, audience, for your patience, and you've been a wonderful audience, and good to have you here.
Thank you so much. It was quite an informative discussion, and I'm sure that's why there were so much follow-up questions. But any questions can be taken up during networking lunch or networking tea break. So sorry for that, but we have to conclude the session as we are running short of time. May I request our chair, Mr. H. Rayappa, to come forward to felicitate our distinguished moderator and panelist for this session. Ms. Seema Jhingan, kindly come forward. Mr. Rajiv Khattar, Mr. Amritpal Singh, Mr. Jitendra Ahuja, may I request Mr. Ravi from SIA to felicitate to our chair.
The session and regulation is expected to excel. So
Thank you. So may I request all of you to please come forward for a group photo, and we will resume our next session in another 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you so much.